On behalf of How Money Works and Wealth Wave, I'd like to welcome all of you down here tonight on our Zoom. My name is Todd Kemp. I'll be your instructor this evening for this evening's Elements class. Tonight is going to be the long-term class of our 5 classes, and these are all based on the new groundbreaking book, How Money Works, Stopping a Sucker, which is one of the hottest sellers right now on Amazon. And one of the reasons for that is that why is it getting so much media attention? Companies, organizations like Heartland Institute of Financial Education, which is a national nonprofit, endorse the program, the book. Why is that? Well, because it really recognizes a simple truth that most Americans are financially illiterate. In fact, most people in the world are, and it's the number one economic crisis in the world. But also, it's also very easy read. I don't know if any of you have read the book, but probably in an hour you could polish it off. And I can't say that about too many financial books. Most financial books, I've been doing this 23 years. I don't even like to read them. They're boring. They're big yawn sessions. But what I can say is that this book is, I think, very engaging. When I see my 10-year-old daughter reading the book, I think it says we're onto something, right? So if you don't have a copy of it, make sure you ask the person you invited on the Zoom tonight, and we can get one in your hands. But these are the 5 Elements courses. So we like to break the book down into bite-sized chunks, if you will. This is the 5th of those 5. So it doesn't matter if you haven't seen the other ones. One's not like a prerequisite for the other, but we will do these every Wednesday. So tonight is going to be the long-term element, which is probably my favorite one, because it draws a lot of commonalities with every human being on earth. If you have a pulse, you're probably dreaming of the day where you could wake up in the morning and work is optional for you, where you can work because you want to, but not because you have to. Finances don't dictate to you that, yep, today I got to work because I don't have enough money, right? So how about a day when we don't have to think about money? And so that's something that is a passion of mine, is helping people kind of hone in on that. And it takes money to do that. So the 6th money milestone in the book, there's 7 money milestones. We're going to talk about 6 and 7 tonight, is building wealth. And along with building wealth, diving a little deeper within that, avoiding the impact of taxes, losses, okay, inflation, how to deal with that, and accumulating and growing our assets over time in the future. So a question we have to ask ourselves is our money going to last, right? Is it going to last as long as we do? Gone are the days when everyone's got a pension. Gone are the days when we retire at 65 and die at 67. We're going to live a long time. We'll probably have 20, 30 years in our retirement. And in fact, I heard this the other day, that 2/3 of everyone who's ever hit 65 in the history of the world is alive today. What does that tell you? Getting old is a new thing. It's previous generations didn't live this long. And so in the Social Security system, used to be one person that was, retired, and 40 people were working to pay for that one person to be retired. Today, it's less than 3 to 1. So we could see there's a lot of headwinds to being able to have the traditional ways of being able to retire. Okay, so it's more about self-security as opposed to Social Security. And this is why 63% of Americans are more afraid of running out of money than dying, right? When you look at the numbers here, 50% chance, if you're a retired age couple, 50% chance at least one of you is going to make it to 95. So that's nice that you're going to live a long time. But again, we have to make sure we are doing the right things with our money and not running out. So now is the right time to start building your wealth. And it doesn't matter if you're 18 years old or 60 years old, now is the time to do it. And we've all heard the saying, pay yourself first. And of course, Zoe's asking the question, one of the characters from the book, does that mean before bills? No, obviously you pay your bills first, but it's really just talking about separating our wants versus our needs, and understanding that we should pay ourselves before our wants. Doesn't mean we don't enjoy our life. It doesn't mean we live like a pauper. It just means that we have to prioritize what's important. I look at it like this. I enjoy spending money. I don't know about you, but I enjoy working hard and spending my money. Now, you probably have some things that you like to spend your money on. Maybe maybe you like to go out to eat. Can't wait for the pandemic to be over so you could go out to your favorite restaurants again. Maybe you like to travel or go on vacations. Maybe you got a shoe fetish. I don't know, but you like to spend your money on something. Well, just imagine in 5 years from now, are you still going to want to spend your money on things you enjoy? What about 10 years or 20 years, right? You get where I'm going with this. Are you going to have the money to do it when you can't work anymore and make the income you're making more? You're going to be real happy with yourself if you paid your future self today. And so there's some disciplines here that we have to understand, right? So discipline, you think about like working out. It takes discipline to work out, to go to the gym, and probably for the first month it takes discipline. But after you've built a habit, you don't need discipline anymore. Same thing with building wealth. But the disciplines we want to get under our belt right away is saving regularly, no matter what, paying ourselves first, have it automatically coming out so you don't even miss it. Don't touch whatever that money is. Don't get your hand caught in the cookie jar until you've saved enough to reach your goal. And review your progress. At least once a year, you want to see where you're at. If you have to make some adjustments along the way, absolutely, we're going to do that too. But there are also some threats to building long-term wealth. Okay, procrastination is probably the biggest one on the list because this is one we can control. It's a human element to this. It's our probably favorite form of self-sabotage, right? Because it's always something that it always feels better to do something in the future, doesn't it? I'm going to start saving when I pay off the car. Or I'm going to start saving when my kids out of preschool. Or I'm going to start saving. It's always in the future, and it feels good to say something that you're going to do, but you may realize the future never comes, right? And so that's where procrastination really hurts us. But some other of these things are just functions of the markets that we just have to have control on and understand how we can mitigate some of these risks, like the risk of losing money, inflation, and taxes. We're going to dive into these a little bit deeper. But let's start with procrastination. Just some things we could do to overcome it. It really comes down to prioritizing what's important, and whatever's truly important, just move it to the top of the list and do it. Right. One of the things we should do, if you haven't done it yet, is read the How Money Works book, Stop Being a Sucker. If you've read it once, read it twice. A lot of times that'll have it sink in a little bit more. Meet with a financial professional this week, not next week or the week after, next month, or when I get this settled here, then I'll be ready. No, just let's see where you're at now, and so what direction you need to go in. Have some goals and deadlines for accomplishing these money milestones. So you don't want to, how to eat an elephant one bite at a time. Same thing with these 7 money milestones. So what's your goal? What's your deadline? Who are you working with to help you accomplish this? Whether it's a partner, a spouse, a good friend. And do you have your goals posted in places where you could see them all the time and remind yourself of what you're really looking to do? And those are all keys to overcoming procrastination. So what's inflation? Inflation is a second risk or threat. And it's really a tax on time. It's like the wind. You can feel it, you can't see it. But in the last 100 years or so, things have gotten more expensive by about 2.8%. Okay, so we all know about the Rule of 72, or if you've attended some of our previous classes, or if you haven't, briefly, the Rule of 72 just says, if you take the number 72 and you divide it by the return that your money earns, it tells you how long it takes for your money to double. Okay, so that's great news for building wealth, but the Rule of 72 doesn't care if money's working for you or against you. So it goes both ways. In this case, inflation is that element of going both ways, because if things cost 2.8% more every year, it's the same thing as saying the value of the dollars in your pocket are reduced by that much. And if you plug that in the rule of 72, 72 divided by 2.8%, it gives you 25.7 years. Simply put, you're 40 years old. You think $1 million is a lot of money? All right. When you're 65, that same $1 million will be worth $500,000. So that is a headwind. What does it simply mean, though, is that we just have to have our assets grow faster than inflation. And so there's some tactics we can use for that. What about losing money? Last year, we had a situation where the market went down 35% in a month, which was unprecedented, a bit scary. But how long does it take to get that money back? In this case, thankfully, the market roared back. But if you look at if you had $10,000 and you lost half of it, you're down to $5,000. What percent return would you have to get your money back? And it's not 50%, it's 100%. You'd have to make 100% return to get your money back, right? 100% of 5,000 is 5,000. So that would make you whole. So if your losses mathematically hurt you a lot more than gains help you. So we have to find ways to protect our principal. Some ways to do that: avoiding the impact of losses. One is just reducing the risk of losses through active money management. Have an investment advisor who can get you out of harm's way if the markets take a tumble. Like last year, if the market goes down 35%, is someone watching your back to make sure that maybe you're not participating in all of that? That's an investment advisor. That's an active money manager. Okay, that's one way. Just another way is just diversifying your portfolio, not having all your eggs in one basket. I remember when I first got in this business and I was trying to, at 22 years old, tell my mom all the things I knew about money. And she's like, "Don't you owe me money?" And I said, "Well, I'm learning about this thing called diversification." And she said, "Well, I know what diversification is. I have my money in 6 different banks." Well, I wasn't the right person to tell her that's not what diversification is, right? But it's spreading your assets over many different classes, asset classes, right? Having your money in not all one bucket. Lastly, is utilizing financial vehicles. There's different vehicles that you can use out there that you can transfer the risk of loss to completely, where they're going to still give you a nice upside participation, but guarantee against loss. So a mixture of all these things are a very good way to help avoid the impact of losses, right? So impact of taxes now. And taxes is like the 800-pound gorilla, a threat for your financial future, because it can really determine how much money you have in retirement, how big of a partner you are with Uncle Sam in retirement, and how much you leave to your children. So let's look at the seed versus the harvest. And how would you rather pay your taxes? Just to frame this in a way that to understand the different tax stairs there are. So if you had $10,000 at age 29 and you earned what the stock market's average for the last 140 years, 9% annual return, by the time you're 65, without adding a dollar, you'd have $250,000. So here's the question. Would you rather pay the taxes on the seed, which is the $10,000 you started with, at whatever today's tax rate is, or would you rather wait until it's worth $250,000 and pay the taxes on whatever taxes will be in the future? So I don't know what you'd rather do, but I can't see if you're raising your hand, but how many people think taxes are going up in the future? Well, we just got done spending trillions of dollars just on COVID relief, and there's over $30 trillion of government debt. So either the government spends less money in the future, which I highly doubt, or they're going to have to tax more. So if you'd like to eliminate that variable, maybe you have more of your money that you pay taxes on the seed ahead of time. So you can have all of your harvest without a dollar in tax. So there's three different buckets, if you will: tax now, tax later, and tax never. Tax now is everything you put in there, every year you pay taxes on it. Okay. There's advantages to that because you may need your money to be available and liquid. And so those are places that you can do that: a brokerage account, your bank account, savings account. Tax later is other vehicles. We'll get into some of those, but essentially whatever taxes are 20, 30 years from now, when you go to take that money, that's the tax you pay. And tax never is what I've described, where you pay taxes on the seed. So let's talk about some of the vehicles out there briefly. You'll see the red tag is the tax now bucket. That's taxable accounts. Everything that you put into those, you'll pay some amount of tax, whether it's interest, dividends, capital gains tax. There are some advantages to holding on to certain assets in a taxable account that you might pay long-term capital gains, which is favorable. But ultimately, it's bleeding out. There's a cost to taxes every single year, having your money, all of it, in a taxable account. You need to have more tax efficiency. So qualified retirement plans like a 401k, 403b, 457 IRAs, like the alphabet soup of retirement plans, right? All these are things that you don't pay tax when you go in. When you take your money, that's when you pay however big of a partner Uncle Sam wants to be with you in your retirement. So imagine what that number could possibly look like. And most people, that's where they have a vast majority of the money. That's why I'm beating up on it a little bit, because it's like 9-1. Almost everybody has their 401k. They love to deduct taxes from today and trade off today's relatively low tax rate. Like, we think we pay a lot in tax now. Did you know in the past, the highest tier tax brackets have been as high as 94% after World War II? Look it up. That means 94, after a certain amount, 94% of what you made went to the federal government. For decades, the top tier tax bracket was 70%. So we think we pay a lot in tax now. We haven't seen anything yet. Okay. So annuities is another way to do this. And you can own annuities in a qualified plan, but a lot of people, what they like to do is defer taxes that are in a taxable account that allows them to have that grow without any taxation as it grows, and then only pay taxes on the growth part later. Government, these are now all tax-free vehicles. So the government bonds, like municipal bonds, things like that, are essentially tax-free. Okay. My favorite vehicle on this page is Roth IRAs. I think that's one of the best gifts that the government gave us to pay our taxes on the seed and enjoy all the harvest of that. There's certain limits and restrictions that we have to pay attention to for that, but a great vehicle. And even a lot of people don't know that with permanent life insurance, if it's set up the right way and it's the right kind of permanent insurance, there's ways you can supplement your retirement tax-free and leave a tax-free death benefit to your heirs as well. So these are some of the vehicles. Now, if you mix all these together, that's how you start to build your game plan in retirement. But we all know Mike Tyson, right? He famously said this: everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. So that punch in the mouth, what does it look like? Well, Clark says, well, don't get in the ring with Mike Tyson, right? So yes, that's true. But what's the getting punched in the mouth? Well, what if you're retired already and you had all your money invested in places that have no protection against the downside, and all of a sudden COVID happens in February, and in 1 month everything you've worked hard for in your entire life goes down by a third? Do you think you're thinking rational thoughts when that happens? And if you're still needing income, by the way, and you don't have a plan for some kind of a guaranteed income stream, and you start to need the income from a place that just lost that kind of money, it's going to be very difficult to recover. Certainly difficult to have your money last as long as you do. So we have to avoid the risk of running out of money. In fact, in a recent Gallup survey, 85% of people who are not retired yet in America, investors, strongly agreed that having a guaranteed income stream outside of Social Security is critical to their retirement. I tell you, my happiest clients are the ones that know all their bills are paid no matter what in retirement. And so we're going to talk about kind of at a 30,000 foot view. Obviously, everyone's got their own unique financial fingerprint, so it's different plan for everybody. But just to give you an idea of how some of this might work, right? What are some components that we'd want to have in place for reliable income in retirement? Well, number one, you have to have a good chunk of your money invested in companies that create inflation, right? If the cost of a gallon of milk goes up, well, the company that made that milk is pricing it higher to still be profitable, right? So if you're going to invest in companies, you want to make sure you're investing in companies that produce the inflation that we're all faced with. That's the only chance you have to outpace inflation over time. The second thing is remove or reduce your risk for potential losses. So there has to be an element in your plan, whether it's active money management, whether it's transferring risk, that can have some kind of stable force, a place for you to pull maybe some income from when your at-risk assets, the stocks you're buying, are maybe not doing so well. And the third one is having a predictable income that lasts. So there are ways now. Most people don't have pensions, okay, anymore. Pensions are a thing of the past. Most companies don't offer them. And if you have one, you're lucky. You're very lucky, okay, because they're worth a lot. And you can monetize the present value of what that is. It's very good value to have a pension. But there are ways that you can shave off a portion of what you've saved in your whole life for retirement to create kind of a personal pension for yourself that does give you a guaranteed income. And this is what it might look like. The way we could break this down, you see these first two levels, there's two layers, I should say, of income. One is Social Security, and we'll call reliable income the next bucket. Maybe you do have a pension or a little bit of pension or your own personal pension. But these first two layers are going to be kind of our paycheck we could rely on. This is the keep the lights on money, right? So you're in retirement, if you still have a mortgage, we'd want to make sure that's factored in. If you don't, you still have taxes and property insurance you have to pay. You still want to eat. You don't want to eat cat food in retirement. You want to actually eat food. So that's would be part of keep the lights on money, right? Your utilities, anything that is a fixed expense, no matter what, we want that covered by something that's guaranteed to come in. Beyond that, we all have our bucket lists in retirement. We all have the things we always wanted to do, but didn't have enough time to do it when we had kids or during our working life. We wanted to travel around the world. We wanted to buy a sailboat. We wanted to, have the car we always wanted. That we'll call our paycheck. So that's the money that we can have fun with, okay, during retirement. And so this is what we want. We want to make sure. Now, some of us wanted to scoot in the grave with our last dollar. And that would be perfect life, right? You spend your last dollar on your last day. Problem is, we know the day we were born, right? We just don't know the other day. So we can't figure it out that way. But we can have reliable income that will last as long as you do. So let's look at money milestone number 7 as we're rounding third base here in talking about protecting your wealth. Estate planning, okay? Sometimes we hear the word estate planning or the phrase, and we think that's for the family with the big house on the hill, or the very wealthy family. They have an estate plan. They have an estate, okay? If you own anything, you have an estate. And everybody needs some form of estate planning. And sometimes even very wealthy people, two things that Prince and Aretha Franklin had in common, besides the fact they were very famous artists, is they both died without an estate plan. Look at all the money that the courts had to decide where that money went, instead of them deciding everything they did in their whole lifetime, where that went. So 64% of Americans don't have a basic will. And so an estate plan is really a plan to protect your wealth. your family, and your legacy. So if you die or get incapacitated, that all these documents then can come to life and exercise your wishes of what you wanted to do while you were alive. So 4 main documents that everyone has to have. Number 1 is a will. A will is very simple to get and do. It will identify who's going to be the guardian of your minors if you have kids. Okay. Now everyone was at church that day when my kids were baptized, and the godmother and the godfather were there and said, yeah, we're going to take care of your kids. Except if it's not on a piece of paper called a will, the courts don't care. Okay, the courts are going to figure out who should take care of your kids. So a will is very important for that. It also distributes your wealth the way you want it. Any property you have to whoever you want. Financial power of attorney is if you're becoming incapacitated, who's going to step in and pay your bills? Who's going to have access to your bank accounts? Who's going to be able to act as you in your financial capacity? Same thing with advanced healthcare directive. How are you going to? What's your way out of this place? Are you gonna say ahead of time how you want to go out, or are you going to let doctors decide? There's been countless cases of people on ventilators that families get in huge arguments over, hey, we should pull the plug, or no, we're going to leave them on the ventilator. So wouldn't it be great to not have family squabbles like that and just say ahead of time, look, if I'm on a ventilator, just unplug me. Or look, I'm on a ventilator, there's probably going to be a chance for a cure. Keep me plugged in as long as possible. Okay. Whatever you want, do it while you're alive. HIPAA, Health Insurance Portability Accountability Act. So that just releases medical information to an agent for you if you're incapacitated, or they can access your medical records. So important to have that stuff. So besides those things, one thing that you need beyond those 4 documents maybe would be to avoid probate, which is really the cost of the court proceeding that is designed to really say what goes where. And so that's called probate. So how do you avoid probate? Was with a trust. Okay. A trust is something that really can help manage your property after you become physically or cognitively impaired. Protects the interests of your children. If you're not able, let's say my wife and I, we pass away. We've got 2 young daughters. Okay. That inheritance, whatever millions of dollars, right, is going to go to them. Well, it won't go to them right away. The courts would have to decide if I don't have a will. But let's say I have a will and I have a guardian. When my kids are 18 years old, they're going to get millions of dollars. I'm just ask yourself what you do at 18 years old with millions of dollars. And now you know, well, I probably want to maybe space that out a little bit, or have a little bit of control beyond the grave of when my kids get a hold of this money. Protect, if you have special needs kids, make sure that the beneficiaries of that, they don't lose their government benefits. The trust can help protect and shield that. Privacy. If you don't want your stuff known out there, well, since the trust is not filed with any courts and probate courts, it's not public information. Avoiding probate in multiple states for property. If you own a house and it's not in a trust, well, the cost of probate court might be 3 to 5% in some states. So you got a $200,000 house, you got $10,000 maybe of cost that's unnecessary if the house is owned by a trust. And if you have a big estate, then that's where irrevocable trust, things like that can come into play to really, that's for the Rockefellers, right? That's for the people who've got a big estate that they don't want that to be included, because estate taxes get huge when you have over about $11 million as of now. But so you have to have, first of all, have more than $11 million. Okay. There's 2 kind of money problems: not enough money and too much money. I think we'd all rather have the too much money as a money problem. So does it mean everyone needs a trust? Not everybody needs a trust, but I think if you own a house, at least if you own a house, you should probably have a trust, because just for the simple fact of the cost of probate court, if you're transferring that asset to somebody else. But there are some assets that have a designated beneficiary, life insurance, annuities, IRAs, your 401k at work, other retirement plans, they will have a stated beneficiary in there and go directly to that beneficiary. And you can make the beneficiary of those things a trust as well if you have very specific ways of how you want that that asset doled out. So many people don't get this taken care of because they don't know where to look, they don't know where to go. They think it's going to be too time consuming. No one wants to sit in a law office for hours on end just to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to an attorney. However, if you have a complicated enough estate, I think it makes sense to use an attorney. But there are plenty of tools out there available now that you could do that at a fraction of the cost, especially if you have a very simple estate. So it's definitely something you want to just check off immediately and don't procrastinate on this one. So we're getting to the end here. And so there's probably some questions that are bouncing around in your head. If you've seen the other classes that we have as well, just know that the best course of action is to not try and figure it out yourself and filter through all the information that's available on Google, because there's so much stuff to weed through. Sit down with somebody who can answer these questions, a financial professional who's licensed to do it. Whoever invited you on here tonight, they did for a reason. Make sure that you get back with them as soon as possible and get these important questions answered. Our mission is to teach 20 million families in the next decade through Zooms like this, through our book, through our classes that we have all the time. We want to level the playing field for everybody to have access to this knowledge and information. And so we appreciate all of you who've been able to join us tonight. If you do have that How Money Works book, the last couple pages of that book are going to be this kind of roadmap. We'll call it the money discovery section. So just like if you plug in coordinates in your GPS, the GPS literally can't give you directions to where you're going unless it can find where you're at now. So if you have a good internet connection or it can't see where you're at, it's not going to give you directions. So think of this as kind of a snapshot of where you're at now, so that you can now have a roadmap for whatever your goals and objectives are financially. So make sure you don't procrastinate and start getting your money working for you today. Appreciate all you being on tonight. Look forward to seeing our next classes in the future. Have a great night, everybody.